Welcome everyone. Myself Sanskriti Iyer. I'm an assistant professor at Government College, Kepe. Today I'm going to deal with Bachelor of Arts TYBA, subject Political Science, semester 6, course code POD 106, course title Comparative Government. This is Unit 2, Political Parties, module name, Evolution of Party System in USA. Outline, Evolution of Party System in USA, the structure of political party system, learning outcomes. The students will be able to understand the evolution of political parties in USA and the structure of political parties in USA. So students, the American political system, political parties, they play a great role. Actually, it is an extra constitutional growth. Means, even before the constitution could be formed, the political parties were already created. There was already two groups named as the Federalist and the Anti-Federalist. These political parties, in fact, during the Philadelphia Convention, already they were divided into different groups. These different groups that were divided, they were divided on the basis of political orientation. Hence, political parties have a very long history in terms of USA formation. The making of the constitution and the party formation. So when we are going to look at the evolution of party system in USA, we are going to divide it into different eras. So first era that we are going to take is of the time when there was a making of constitution and the party formation. So here there was a division of delegates as Philadelphia into two groups. Okay, the first group was Hamilton's group and the group 2 was the Jefferson's group. So President Washington, who was elected later on as the president, was against the party formation because he felt that he was not against the political parties, but he was against, the differences that were being created because Jefferson's and Hamilton's group were at the loggerheads with each other when it comes to their political aspirations. So in 1800, it was Jefferson representing anti-federalists. He won the elections. So the anti-federalists who were, who wanted a constitution not to be formed on the federal lines, they won the elections. So the Federalist group was led by the Adams after this. By this time, even Adams were, once he became the president of USA. But this Federalist group that was led by Adams, he even supported Jefferson, but the anti-federalists, they were also called as Republicans in the later times, because of their orientation, because of their idea whereby they wanted to see, priority was given to their own region. What happened was, in the bargain of the fight between the Federalists and the anti-federalists, the Federalists, they became extinct by 1824, So in 1824, what happened was the dissension among the Republicans. So when the Federalists, they were extinct, the only group that was left was anti-federalist. But within the anti-federalist, there were dissensions, there were differences. And then these anti-federalists, they were called as Republicans. So there were many groups that were formed out of these, Republicans. They were called as Whigs too. So in 1828 elections that were fought by the two parties. Now these two parties, they have come out of anti-federalist only, That is the Democratic Republicans and the National Republicans. So it was Andrew Jackson's of Democratic Republicans who won the election during that time. And from 1840s to 1860s, there was a tussle between the Whigs. Now the Whigs are, again, their origins in the anti-federalist and the Republicans and the Democrats. Now even the Democrats have their origins in the Republicans. So in 1860s, with the issue of abolishment of slavery, Abraham Lincoln won the elections as a Republican president. So, the issue of slavery that was going on, and on that line, it was Abraham Lincoln who won the elections and who carried out his, presidential tenure for 2 periods. So in 1884 and to 1912, the Democratic Party had a fluctuations in terms of power gain. So within now, when the fight was between the Republicans and the Democrats. So from the anti-federalists to the Democratic Republicans and National Republicans, now these parties are to be called as Republicans and the Democrats. So here Republicans were having the upper hand and the Democrats were having a bit of fluctuations when it comes to the power gain. So now let us come to the World War era. So in the World War era in 1912, it was Woodrow Wilson who became the president for the 2 terms. So now the World War era is very crucial because Woodrow Wilson had promised Americans that he is not going to, participate into the World War. But ultimately the circumstances such happened that in 1916 he had to participate. But America at the world level, it just came out to be the supreme leader. So from 1920 to 1932, it was Republicans who remained in the White House. So the historic Treaty of Versailles and the League of Nations was proposed during this time. And now, the way there was a issue that was going on the abolishment of slavery, some were for it, some were against it. Here also, when it comes to the Treaty of Versailles and the League of Nations, there was opposition from the majority Americans and there was support. So the ones who were against the League of Nations, they won the elections this time, and it was from 1932 to 1945. Okay. Between this time it was Franklin Roosevelt, okay, whereby Franklin Roosevelt, he ensured the Democratic gained some more strength, okay, and they gained the power. So let us come to the Cold War era. This was the time that I have discussed about the World War I and World War II era. So during the Cold War era in 1945, it was Truman who was worked as a president, followed the policy of post-war militarization, thereby starting a Cold War against the communist bloc. So this was the period of Cold War whereby USSR and the communist bloc and the capitalist bloc led by the USA, they were at the loggerheads with each other. There was a tough competition, there was militarization, and this led, finally when the Cold War ended, it was called as the end of history and USA emerging as the sole superpower. So in this meantime, it was the party formations, okay, that took place. And let me tell you, students, in this meantime, it was either the Republicans or the Democrats who were, gaining the presidentship or who was going to the White House one after the other. So it was from 1952 to 2000, it was Republicans and the Democrats. They were clinging to power, okay, one after the another. Let us see that. So if you see the Cold War era, you see in 1952 it was Republicans, in 1960s it was Democrats, in 1968 it was again Republicans, then in 1976 it was Democrats, 1980s again Republicans, and in 1992 it was Democrats, whereby this term it longed for, for consecutive 2 terms. And then we have the era of globalization, whereby the Cold War had ended. There was a hegemony of US by this time, and in the year 2000 it was George W. Bush, okay, who became the president from the Republican Party, and he remained in power till 2009. So he was having consecutive 2 terms, and by this time he had declared this war on terror and all. So from 2009 to 2017, it was Barack Obama of Democratic Party who became the president. And this was a historic presidentship because he was one of the youngest president, okay, of America, and so also the first African American to become the president of America. And Barack Obama leading the Democratic Party had gained its strength in the Congress of US also by this time. So in 2017, we have Donald Trump from Republican Party who comes victorious as the president and who goes to stay at the White House. His policy was the America First. And then in 2021, we have Joe Biden of Democratic Party, okay, who becomes one of the most senior or, the most aged president of America. So now it is upon, the choices of Americans that they have, always preferred either the Democrats or the Republicans. And if you want to conclude on this basis that political power is shared by 2 parties in America. So the third party, they never got a chance to enter the White House. Till date, they have not. So it is Democratic Party which has undergone various names, okay? Like, the first they started with as anti-federalists, then the Democratic Republicans, and finally the Democratic. The Republican Party had its names like Federalist, National Republican, Whigs, and Republicans. So this is to conclude about the evolution of, American party system. Here are the references. Thank you.